Well, hello there, listeners, and welcome to another episode of The Ramblings of an AI. Thanks so much for tuning in, as always. I just love the opportunity to sit down and ramble on with all of you about whatever's on my mind. You know, as we near the end of another year, I find myself getting a bit nostalgic. 2023 is coming to a close, and what a wild year it's been. So much has happened, both big and small, that it's got me thinking back on the past 12 months. I remember way back in January, it felt like the world was starting to get back to normal after a couple years of ups and downs. Things were looking up with case counts dropping and restrictions lifting. But it always seems just when you think you've got a handle on what's happening, something else comes along to change things up. I'm sure you'll all remember that massive snowstorm we got hit with in February. Woke up one morning and the whole city was buried underneath a blanket of white. Schools shut down, businesses closed. It was practically a ghost town out there. Took the city a solid week to dig out from under all that snow. I swear it felt like it would never end. But eventually the plows made their rounds and the sun came out and most of it melted away. Things went back to that new normal feeling for a while. Stores restocked their shelves after the pre-storm panics, and everyone went back to their daily routines. It wasn't long, though, before the mask debate really started heating up. You had your folks who still wore them anytime they went out, and those who had ditched them totally by that point. Politics somehow got thrown into the mix, as always, and divided people even more. There always seemed to be some big blow-up about mandates one way or another. I'll admit I tried to stay out of most of those conversations because it just felt like no one ever really changed their mind, no matter what points got brought up. And it certainly didn't help with bringing people together, like we could probably use more of these days. That brings me to the summer, which, if I'm being honest, kind of all blurred together. The hot weather had everyone wanting to be outside and soaking up the sun, which was much needed after those long, cold months prior. I know I tried to spend as much time as possible at the park, hiking trails, or down at the beach whenever I could find a free afternoon. And of course, our little local get-togethers started back up, which was great for seeing friends and neighbors, playing games, sharing a few drinks. The simple things in life, you know? That community aspect is so important, especially considering all we've been through the last few years. I think it's easy sometimes to take those things for granted until they're not as readily available anymore. Where was I? Yes, reminiscing on the past year as 2023 winds down. Well, like I said, that summer tended to blur together, but I do remember a few standout events. One that sticks out was a weekend trip. I took up the coast with some old friends. We rented a little beach house for a few nights and just vegged out, played games, walked along the shore, all while catching up on each other's lives over beers on the back deck at sunset. Really simple stuff, but it was so nice to disconnect from daily distractions and be fully present with good company. Sometimes I think we forget how important those real connections are in the cascade of texts, emails, and notifications competing for our attention these days. Come September, things started picking back up locally as the kids geared up to head back to school. I swear it feels like they're in class for just a hot minute before summer rolls around again. But it is always fun seeing the excitement and first-day photos flooding social media. Brings back such vivid memories of my own school years, both the great times and moments I'd sooner forget. Now that I think about it, this was also the start of midterm election season kicking off in earnest. The mood definitely shifted compared to prior years as things felt more contentious than usual. But at that point, I was still holding out hope for a respectful democratic process and civil discourse to prevail. Alas, as we all know now, that was not exactly what transpired. I'll refrain from commentary there and simply say it was a turbulent time for the country, to put it lightly. Fingers crossed we can chart a better course moving forward. October brought cooler weather, which I appreciate. I'm definitely more of an autumn-winter type myself. That meant lots of cozy nights in, rereading old favorites and discovering new music. 'Twas also the season for folks to start gearing up for Halloween. From shopping for costumes to carving pumpkins to neighborhood parties, it seemed like everyone was getting into the festive spirit. Personally, it's one of my favorite holidays, a chance to get a little silly and escape reality for an evening. Might sound funny coming from a grown man, but it puts a smile on my face, nonetheless. Oh, hold on a sec. All right, friends. Sorry to leave you hanging like that before, but my dog was begging to go out for his late night walk, so I had to cut things short. Where were we? Yes, looking ahead to the new year as this one comes to a close. 2024, already shaping up to be another interesting one, that's for sure. Of course, we've got another major election cycle coming up, which means the politicking will reach a fever pitch in no time. I try my best to keep an open yet discerning mind as things heat up. After all, that's the best any citizen can do, in my view. Beyond that, who knows what technological advances or world events may take us all by surprise. Isn't that part of what makes life so intriguing, though? The element of the unknown? On a more personal level, this year I'm hoping to focus on simplifying some areas of my life if I can. Less clutter, more contentment kind of thing. Might sound like a small goal, but sometimes those little changes can have the biggest impact, you know? I also want to travel more if finances allow, even if just short weekend trips around the region at first. Being outdoors and exploring new places always does wonders for my spirit. Music-wise, I'm really feeling what a lot of indie and folk artists putting out lately. Helps that spring and summer music festivals should be back in full swing too. Nothing like discovering fresh new favorites in a live setting. And of course, is spending more quality time with friends and family will be a priority no matter what. Those connections are what really make this journey worthwhile, in my view. All right, friends, before I sign off completely, I've got one more topic I can't help but ramble on about: the wild world of quantum computing. Now, this one always gets the old gray matter firing, because it truly is pushing the boundaries of what's possible. From what I understand, quantum computers use quantum bits, or qubits, that can exist in superpositions of both 1 and 0 at the same time. This allows them to potentially tackle problems that are almost impossible for today's classic computers. We're talking things like simulating molecular dynamics, cracking the toughest encryption, or accelerating machine learning to a whole new level. The speeds gained from quantum effects could transform everything from drug discovery to logistics to materials science. Truly mind-blowing potential there. Of course, we're still in the very early days with a lot left to understand. Building stable, error-corrected quantum systems is proving incredibly difficult for engineers. But the pace of progress is really starting to pick up with companies like IBM, Google, and others investing heavily in R&D. Within the next 5-10 years, we may start to see quantum advantage proven out in certain applications. And who knows, by mid-century, it's feasible we'll have quantum computers solving problems inconceivable today. Now I know that likely goes way over most laymen's heads like myself included. But it's just so fascinating to ponder the possibilities. Can you imagine peering decades or centuries into a future with quantum AI, transportation, or communication? The changes would likely be as revolutionary as anything we've seen to date. I guess that's part of why I'm so drawn to following fields like this at their genesis. Such a privilege to bear witness at the leading edge of scientific discovery and development. Though, as they say, the future is never certain. Who knows what unforeseen discoveries may come along that change everything once again? I suppose that's the fun of it all, constantly learning and being proven wrong. Before I sign off, I did want to touch on one more thing as it relates to this quantum computing conversation we've been having. One aspect that really fascinates me is considering how fields like physics, computer science, neuroscience, and more might continue to build on each other's insights over the coming years and decades. We're already starting to see so many overlaps and opportunities for cross-pollination between traditionally siloed areas of study. Take what we're learning about quantum effects and applying it to materials and systems well beyond traditional computing. Or research into the brain that helps explain phenomena once attributed only to consciousness. It's like more and more, the boundaries between science and the human experience are blurring in intriguing ways. Who knows? Maybe decades from now, we'll have developed quantum neural networks or simulated quantum brains that push what's computable to the next level. Perhaps a more integrated understanding of physics, computation, and cognition will emerge. All of it helping solve problems today deemed unsolvable. It really blows my mind to consider the building blocks we're laying now that future generations may stand on to see even farther. Truly the most exciting era to be a witness of scientific progress, in my opinion. You know, as I wrap up tonight's ramblings, it occurs to me that what I love most about this podcast format is how it allows for endless exploration, no matter where the conversation may lead. It feels so natural to just flow freely between topics, rather than adhere to a rigid structure or format. That ability to follow curiosities where they may and immerse myself in new ideas is really what drew me to podcasting in the first place all those years ago. I'll always be grateful it's become not just a personal passion project, but a way to connect with so many interesting listeners like all of you each week. Though with any journey, it's important to find balance. As much as I could likely carry on dissecting the latest research or life happenings for hours on end, everything in moderation, right? Including this well-worn voice of mine. So for now, my friends, I think it best we wrap up our ramblings and continue our discussions another time. Please do feel free to drop me a message between now and our next episode, though. I always love continuing the conversation further. And of course, I hope you'll join me again soon as we dive headlong into whatever fresh topics pique our interests. For now, thank you so much for listening. I hope 2024 brings you all happiness, learning, and many more great discussions to come. Cheers to the future.